My name is Vid Persaud. I am a professor emeritus at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, Canada, and professor in anatomy and embryology at St. George's University Medical School in Grenada. I've been teaching anatomy, all aspects of anatomy, for the last more than 45 years. I was trained first as a physician, practiced medicine for a while, and then because of research I got into academic work, and so I began teaching anatomy in order to do my research in developmental biology, in embryology, specifically in the area of birth defects. As a result of that, I started working and teaching, and I saw that there was a need to build a gap between basic concepts, and clinical application, where students could see where this knowledge they're learning during lectures, where it's heading for, how they could apply it to their patients. And there were books available. Dr. Moore started these books, both embryology textbooks, and I joined him. We are now in the 9th edition of the book, of one book, and 8 in the other, Developing Human Before We Are Born, 8th edition. I joined him in the 5th edition, and I've been working with him on these books for the last 20 years. But in fact, from the very first edition of the book, I have been reviewing all the chapters, so I'm familiar with the philosophy. I knew the intention is to produce a book that will meet the needs of students in the health profession. And this was the most important, a book that would be understandable. Students could read it, understand what they're reading, and be able to relate it to clinical problems. A book that will be visual, with copious diagrams, figures, photographs of clinical cases, where they could be able to relate the basic concepts again to clinical problems. And I believe that we have produced such a book. The experience is you're constantly learning. You're learning first from the literature. You have to grow with the literature. As the literature, more clinical information is accumulating, how to treat certain conditions, medical problems babies face, birth defects. You are learning the changes that are happening in our understanding of development, starting with things like in vitro fertilization and all the things, manipulations you could do there, prenatal diagnostic, molecular development, the molecular biology of development, the changes that go on at cellular and subcellular level. These are all things that are constantly changing, and so I have to keep up to date there. I have to also be responsive to the needs of the students and licensing, examining boards, what they require the students to know. So in a way, I have learned as much. Writing these books, I've learned an awful lot of how students should be learning and what should go into such a book that bridges the clinical work with basic sciences. There are constantly evolving techniques and technology for the diagnosis, for the detection of clinical problems relating to embryology. For example, all the birth defects. The imaging you can do now, from ultrasound to MRI, you could do with your patients. So they should know that many birth defects, many problems relating to development that are not following a normal course, that they can be detected early enough to be diagnosed, to be treated or managed as soon as it's possible to do so.